All righty. Hello, everyone. Thank y'all for being here. We're very excited to kick off our parent and supporter webinar for all of our parents and supporters of students going through the Panhellenic Sorority Recruitment process. We're going to give it a couple of minutes as folks start heading in as we hit that 6 o'clock mark. So we'll give everyone a couple minutes to get in, get settled before you kick things off. All right. Seems like folks coming in is starting to slow down a little bit. So we'll go ahead and get started. I do want to remind everyone that this is being recorded. So if for any reason you need to step away, or you know somebody, a friend, or anyone else who couldn't attend tonight, don't worry, it's being recorded. So we will upload it to our YouTube channel and make sure it's available to everyone. So I want to get that out of the way just so y'all know. But we'll go ahead and kick things off. So I want to introduce myself. My name is Daniel McBurney. I'm the Assistant Director of Fraternity and Sorority Life here at Georgia Southern University. I primarily work at the Statesboro campus and really get the wonderful opportunity to advise our Panhellenic Association as they navigate the sorority recruitment process and bring in all these wonderful students into our community. I'll also want to take a chance to introduce a lot of the other folks in the office who might not be here, but want to make sure you know their names and understand who they are. The director of the Office of Fraternity and Sorority Life is Dr. Francisco Lugo. Our assistant director of Fraternity and Sorority Life on our Armstrong campus is Emma Grace Mancini. We have 4 graduate assistants. I'll let Erin introduce herself.
Hey everyone, my name is Erin Rice, and I'm currently the Panhellenic Graduate Assistant for the office.
Awesome. And we have 3 additional graduate assistants who will be supporting us during recruitment week in our office throughout the entire year. Tiara Marshall, Wilbert Stubbs, and Jenny Obiri Yabora. And then I'll let Harriet introduce herself.
Hi, everyone. My name is Harriet Baker, and I serve as a facilitator for our sorority recruitment program specifically. So I am on site on the ground with the Panhellenic and the office staff throughout the week to prep and make the experience as positive as possible.
Wonderful. And then last but not least, want to highlight our incredible student leaders who make this recruitment week possible. Oh, just kidding. I got to introduce Dr. Dowell first. So Dr. Dowell, go ahead.
Thank you, Daniel. Good evening, everyone. Happy Hump Day. As Daniel mentioned, I do have the pleasure. I'm Aileen Dowden. I have the pleasure of serving as the Associate Vice President and Dean of Students. I have been at Southern since February 2021. So I wanted to officially welcome all our newest Eagles, and of course, onboard you all to this recruitment process. It is very highly treasured, and several of us are affiliated, including some folks on the President's Cabinet. So please know that FSL is highly treasured, and we welcome you all and happy to walk you through this process.
Perfect, perfect. And now I'll hand it over to our Panhellenic Association.
Hi, everybody. My name is Jaylee Kilgo, and I'm the Panhellenic president here at Georgia Southern University. So I will be helping facilitate anything and everything pertaining to recruitment week. So your daughters, your loved ones will probably be seeing my face a lot whenever it pertains to the week of recruitment.
Hi, everyone. My name is Megan Ramirez, and I serve as Vice President of Recruitment here. I am so excited to be working with all of your girls so soon, and we're all so excited.
Wonderful, wonderful. So, first we want to kind of start off talking through some of the recruitment terms. And before I dive into that, we do have the chat disabled and the Q&A currently disabled. At the end, we'll do all of the questions and answers at once so that we could take care of them. We just want to get through the content first so that hopefully we answer a ton of your questions through this, and then any leftover questions you have, we'll answer at the end when I open up the Q&A chat. So first, I kind of want to go over the recruitment terms because we understand that the fraternity and sorority world, there's a lot of terminology and jargon that is completely brand new to a lot of folks. And we want to make sure that whenever we're speaking to specific things, you know what we're talking about. So we have this shared language and you're able to fully understand the process and what your student might be going through for recruitment. So first and foremost, you'll hear us talk about potential new members. PNM is the acronym, first and foremost. And these are your students. These are the women who are participating in the sorority recruitment process. They are potential new members because they are potentially new members of our community. Pretty straightforward. Potential new member number is the number that they're assigned. We have so many women going through the recruitment process. So not only knowing their name, but also knowing their number helps us identify them. And it's really important that your students know what their number is. So it's very easy for us to look them up and do anything we might need to do to help support them in the process. Next up is PHAs. So PHAs are our recruitment counselors here at Georgia Southern. And PHAs are initiated undergraduate sorority women who have disaffiliated from their organizations in order to help support the sorority recruitment process and guide your students who are participating in the process and give them unbiased, direct support in order to help your student find the best place for them through the sorority recruitment process. Next up is bid. So a bid is an invitation to membership. So if your student receives a bid from an organization, that means they're invited to join that organization as a new member. Next up is rounds. So rounds are how we divide up recruitment. And each day we host a round, and it's themed to help a woman understand and know more about the specific chapters based on those themes. We have 4 rounds for our recruitment process, and we'll talk through what each of those are and what each of those days entails as we get to the schedule. Then we got our parties. So in each round are the parties. So those are the actual events that the sorority hosts that the potential new members attend to get to know the active members and have those conversations and participate in the recruitment process. The next piece of terminology is intentional single preference. So this is when a potential new member lists only one chapter on her membership recruitment acceptance binding agreement following preference round. So this is when an in the final round, if they have 2 organizations that they visited for that round, they're intentionally only putting 1 on their membership recruitment acceptance binding agreement, which is our next terminology piece, which is the MRABA, which is a binding agreement between the P&M and the NPC. We want you to know those terms. Harriet will dive super deep into what that means and what how they fit within the process as a whole, but we want you to understand what the terminology actually is, so that when Harriet uses it further into the presentation, you know what we're talking about. So now we're going to get down to the recruitment week breakdown. So first day is Tuesday, August 5th. As many of you know, and all of your students, or the vast majority of them, have signed up. August 5th is move-in day. So move-in slots will take place between 9 a.m. and 1 p.m. on that Tuesday. And all of your students have received an email from University Housing, so you should have already gotten that. Last I checked, absolutely everyone should have that email. So it should be in your student email. So make sure you have registered for one of the time slots in between that time frame, because that is the time you select to come to Georgia Southern and move into your room. The next piece, later that day, we'll be hosting 2 P&M orientation sessions. We're hosting 2 of them because we have so many P&Ms that we got to break them in half just to make sure we could fit everybody into the room. So session 1 will be for groups 1 through 8, and that'll be at 2 p.m. And then session 2, which is at 3:30, which is for groups 9 through 16. Your students will receive their number, and we talk about this on our frequently asked questions section. But on that end, just know those times and make sure your students prepared to attend that. It's important to note that P&M orientation is for P&Ms only. So only the students will be allowed at P&M orientation. We don't have space for anyone else to be joining, so it just needs to be the student who attends that orientation session. Then we got Wednesday, August 6th, that kicks off recruitment right then and there with our icebreaker round and programming day. So we kind of split the P&Ms in half again, where groups 1 through 8, they'll be visiting all 7 sororities on August 6th that morning. And then later that afternoon, Panhellenic will be providing some awesome programming and educational opportunities for all the women in the second half of the day. And then they switch. So P&M groups 9 through 16, they will visit all 7 sororities in the afternoon, but in the morning, that's when they'll be doing programming. So in the morning, groups 1 through 8 are visiting the organizations, 9 through 16 are at programming day, and then they flip-flop. 1 through 8 are at programming day, and 9 through 16 are at the sororities visiting all 7. Then next up on Thursday is our philanthropy round. So that round is themed around the organization's philanthropies. Those are the organizations that all the sororities raise money for throughout the year. And it's a great way for members to learn about what philanthropic causes are important to those specific organizations. So for philanthropy round, P&Ms will be visiting up to 6 organizations. That's the first day that they'll receive an individualized schedule. For day 1, they kind of go in order, and everyone kind of has the same schedule based on what group they're in. Whereas starting on day 2, on that philanthropy round, absolutely everybody has their own individual schedule based on their invites. On Friday, August 8th, that's our sisterhood round where they focused on how they build sisterhood and engage with each other in the organization. And during sisterhood round, P&Ms will be visiting up to 4 organizations for that round. And then last but not least, the final round is our preference round. During that round, P&Ms will be visiting up to 2 organizations for that round. At the end of that round, that's when P&Ms sign their MRABA, the Membership Recruitment Acceptance Binding Agreement, because that's the agreement that they sign in order to accept a bid to any of the organizations the next day, which takes us to the next day, which is bid day. So P&Ms, bid day is when P&Ms will receive their invitation of membership into the organization that they received it from, and parents can attend that. I'll talk about that in a second. For Panhellenic Sorority Recruitment, if your student receives a bid, they're only receiving 1 bid to 1 organization. They don't receive multiple and then get to choose. It's one, they're matched with 1 organization. So it's important to note that piece. So for bid day, parents, we typically have parents show up directly on Olympic Boulevard around 10 o'clock. That is when typically parents start showing up for the bid day festivities. Students will go into the Performing Arts Center first, and that is a student-only event. And that's where they open their bid, and then they run back to the sorority houses, and that's where you can celebrate with them and have all the fun and enjoy all the bid day festivities from there. So now we'll kick off the recruitment process, and this is where Harriet will get into the nitty-gritty of the recruitment and kind of go through those terms more in depth so that you can understand what your student's going through. So I'll pass it off to Harriet.
Okay, so I like to make sure to reassure everybody that you all have the answers if your student, if your daughter comes to you. Again, we all need to be a part of the team that's supporting the progression through what is a process. So you hear us talk a lot about the sorority recruitment process. So I want to explain the actual progression and the process. I've explained it or simplified it down into an algorithm, if you will, that again helps our entity, the Panhellenic and those of us that are hosting recruitment to create those schedules each day in a way that respects your daughter's interests and her wishes and where she'd like to spend more time and meet more members of a particular affiliation and or chapter. So I'm going to give you a simplified version of this. Again, it's a model and using fake chapter names, of course, but I want you to have the visualization to be able to kind of lean on if you get asked a question or if you and your student together are trying to navigate what this progress looks like over time. I will also share with you as we move through the model, we give this exact presentation to all students during the programming day. So again, urge your student to pay attention when we present this to them. We stay and we answer questions so that they can understand that, the progression and the schedule that they will see in the following round and where that schedule came from and how we intake their interest and then pair them with the invitations and or interest of the chapter. So let's take a look together. In this model community, I want to walk you through your daughter, your student is going to get the opportunity to meet, I'm using 8 sororities as an example in this model. We have 7, but I'm using the number 8. So we have 8 sororities. In that first round, icebreakers, as Daniel explained, in the model, the student will meet all 8, then they will get to say that they like 6 of them. And then for the other 2 organizations, instead of saying no, they don't get a chance to say no, they essentially say no, thank you. And that's how the algorithm works. So by ranking the two groups that fall out of the cluster, and I'll show you what that looks like in a second. By ranking the two that fall outside of the cluster that they like or that they prefer, the student is essentially expressing her interest in the group she'd like to see the next day. So let's see what that looks like. After attending all 8 events of our model community, the student will go into an app. We call it the PNM Companion app. It'll be on their phone. They have to attend all they have to make their way through all parties. And then at the end of the round, so at the end of that day, whether that be the conclusion of the morning session or the conclusion of the evening session, they will get a chance to see this presentation and then make their choices. So let's see what that looks like once they put in, whether they like or whether they least prefer these groups. They will pick 6 groups that they want to cluster. That's the maximum number of parties they can be invited back to in the next round. So of the 8 groups, they will pick the 6 that they most prefer. They will provide that list in the app, into the app and save it. Then they will be asked to take the remaining 2 chapters, those that fell outside of their cluster, and rank them. And so in this situation, this PNM likes at Gamma more, I think. Let's advance the slide. You don't just put them in the pile. They prefer Epsilon over Gamma. They liked Epsilon in that number 1 position more than they liked Gamma. So that's what you'll see there. Of the first 6, of the 6 that they put in the cluster, we don't need to know the order in which they preferred those groups. We only need to know the order in which they preferred the groups that fall outside of their cluster. And I'll show you what the algorithm is going to do in the next slide. So we're going to take all of the 8 chapters again, because we didn't say no, we said no thank you. We're going to see through the mutual connection between this PNM and the chapters. So in the same afternoon, we are going to ask all 8 chapters to send us a list of PNMs that they would like to invite back into the next round. The software that we're using looks for mutual connections. So they are seeing that this PNM wanted to go back to Alpha. Alpha wanted to invite them back. That's mutual. She wanted to go back to Delta. Did Delta invite her back? Let's say. You're good. You just arrow over maybe? There you go. Oh, we'll go back.
All in at once.
Taking a second. I can talk through it this way. She wanted to go back to Delta. Delta invited her back. It's mutual. So those 2 are on her schedule. She wanted to go back to Ada. Ada did not invite her back. And so she will not be attending Ada in the next round. Now, what happens when she doesn't, we missed this in the animation, but what happens when it doesn't work out with Ada, the bracket in the middle now looks at Epsilon. And so Epsilon is now in that position because our goal is to get this PNM into 6 events. And we're going to exhaust all of our options. But only at the point in which it didn't work out with Ada and it was not mutual and she was not invited back, only at that point did we move our bracket and look at Epsilon. So we're going to keep going. Again, we're not giving up on the other 3 that she's interested in. She's interested in Lambda. Lambda invited her back. She's interested in Mu. Mu invited her back. Nu invited her. She wanted Nu. Nu invited her back. Now let's look at Epsilon. And remember, we're only looking at Epsilon because Ada was not a mutual match. So we look at Epsilon. Epsilon is also not a mutual match. So that bracket then again would come under Gamma. Let's try to get that 6th position filled with the chapter. And in fact, Gamma invited her back, and so we're going to fill the 6th position with Gamma. So moving into the next day, this PNM would go back to Alpha, Delta, Lambda, Mu, Nu, and Gamma with a full 6 schedule. And so I think that's really helpful for you to understand as a parent. And remember, we're going from 7 to 6, maximum of 6 events. Does not mean that the student would get 6 back, but it's a maximum of 6. Because let's say that Mu and Nu were not a mutual match and she was not invited back to those events, then we would just have a schedule of Alpha, Delta, Lambda, and Gamma. And that would be fine. And we would move forward into the next round with 4 chapters when there's a maximum of 6. That's actually quite common. So to have a full schedule going into the next round would be not as common as having 2, 3, 4, 5 instead to go back into the next round. So the next round has a maximum of 6, and then when we would be asking for her selections into the following round, we would be taking whatever the number of events she attended that day down from that number to 4. Now, if it is 4, we would just be putting everybody in her cluster. If it's 3, we would be putting everybody in our cluster. If it's 5, we'd be taking 4 in her cluster and leaving 1 in the rank position. So we will walk the student through those options. As Daniel pointed out, their schedules are customized to them and their particular progression as we get into the later rounds. So for the first round, they will put 6 in their cluster, they will have 1 in their rank, and then as we move into later rounds, they may have that dynamic where they have to rank number 1 and number 2. For their rank. If you have multiple in your rank, you have to put them in an order. Your cluster never has to be in an order, and they're just submitted and you're progressed through, again, using the same algorithm each night. Every night we collect a list from each of the chapters about who they want to progress into the next round. So that's all facilitated. The other thing I like to point out, and Daniel, you can go to the next slide. The other thing I like to point out so that you know, again, re-emphasizing there's no cutting or dropping in organization. So that's a very slang-like expression or term that's used that we don't use as a staff or as the group that's supporting them. You don't get to cut or drop anybody. You get to rank them. So, you know, as you're working with your student, if they said, oh, well, I dropped them yesterday or I cut them yesterday. No, you ranked them yesterday and now you have this second opportunity to go see them again. I think that helps with the expectation setting, that the student is understanding that only when it didn't work out with their more preferred group did we look to those groups that fell into the rank. So you don't really get an option to cut or drop anybody at any point as a PNM. Mutual selection provides the opportunity to fill your schedule with chapters that you are excited about meeting, and that are excited about meeting you and that you might want to reconsider as well. You know, Daniel and I have done this for a dozen years at this point, and I cannot tell you the number of times that someone will rank someone in an early round only to end up, you know, very pleased and very happy and very well connected to that group later in the week, just through additional conversations, additional exposures to other sisters that maybe they had more in common with. These chapters are really, really large. And so we understand the difficulty and the challenges that exist in only getting to meet, you know, 3 or 4 or 5 people on that first day. The additional exposures are so helpful. The parties themselves are longer each day, so the conversations can get deeper and more in depth, and particularly expose larger and stronger connections as you progress. So that's why we emphasize and really, really need your help as their supporters to encourage attending. They don't have to commit every day at the end of each day. If they go to their parties and then ultimately do not want to progress any further, they would just need to talk to us about that. But going to the parties is key because you never know what conversation might, you know, connect in a new way. The other thing is that chapters rank you, and then in return, they will not know how you ranked them as a PNM. So that is where, you know, Panhellenic really becomes the broker and the privacy keeper of those decisions. Your student is not required to tell or show anybody other than the app who they're ranking and clustering each day. Their preferences are private. In fact, you know, if they choose or make a decision to not share those with you, I think that sometimes is a healthy boundary so that there's not a great deal of weight or anticipation from round to round. So don't be surprised if your student's like, I had a great day. I put who I put. We'll see what happens tomorrow. Like, that is theirs. Again, it can be something that's incredibly personal, that they may not want other people to know. We discourage, if anything, them sharing it with their friends or roommates or other people that they don't really want to share that with. So it's between them and their daily decision with their app. But again, the chapters never know what that PM puts in. We broker that interaction through the third party app. And then, as Daniel pointed out previously, the MRABA, I like to explain it as a pre-acceptance to your bid to membership. A bid is kind of an interesting and symbolic thing in the sense that it is a card, it's a formally printed invitation to membership, but that is not where the invitation gets extended. It's not the physical piece of, of paper that you get that Sunday. It is pre-accepted through this contract the day before. I think about it like closing on a house or something like, yes, you get the keys, but the deed is done at the point in which you're getting the keys. The title is signed and we've progressed beyond that. It's yours now. So the MRABA is a pre-acceptance to your bid to membership as a PNM, and you get to list the options you have available to you. So if you got to attend 2 preference events, you are putting them in number 1 and number 2 position if you choose to list them. And when you sign that agreement, when you sign that contract, freshly 18, 19-year-old students in most cases signing this contract, they are pre-accepting a bid to either of those organizations. So if it doesn't work out, just like in the example, the model, if it doesn't work out with number 2, we're going to look, or number 1, we're going to look to number 2 to see if we can get them a bid to membership through our mutual process. And so just know that it could be either of those groups, and they've already signed the bid to either group that they list. And again, for me, it's not something to worry about till we're up against it. We have a lot of students and parents that are like, well, what if in this round, we are weeks and days away. Let's just see where it goes. And truly, the cliche that we share every year is the best place your student can be at preference is torn, not being able to decide between number 1 and number 2. People worry so much about how are they going to be able to pick if they have 2 options, how will they pick, who's number 1 and who's number 2 or what they must prefer. That's the best place, because what it means is on bid day, they will be happy. They will be happy opening a bid to either group. So being torn about which group to put in which position is the best, most privileged place you can be, and that's really not something to worry about within the bounds of our process. So hopefully that's helpful. If you ever want more information about any of these dynamics, algorithms, I always have a parent or 2 that are like, I want to see how this really works, or I want to talk at length about it. We're happy to have those conversations with you so that you feel prepared with your student. But again, we don't always need to worry about it until we're, into the process. And just know that Daniel, myself, and the rest of Panhellenic are available to talk to your student. If you're getting questions and you feel out of your depth, please, please, please encourage them. We are available. We are on site. We are very visible. Tell them to come find one of us, and we will walk through the specific example that they may have in mind, or this specific experience that they are in the middle of.
Awesome. Thank you, Harriet. So last but not least, I think the big important piece for this is how you can assist your student through this process. Because truth be told, and you'll see the head shaking from our Panhellenic members down bottom, it's a big week, and there's a lot going on. And really, we know the students are successful when they have the support of their parents and supporters navigating this process. So that being said, we do have a few key points that we often suggest to our parents and supporters. First and foremost, encourage your student to have an open mind, right? Like Harriet mentioned, your students might be saying no thank you to an organization, but didn't match with somebody and end up being invited back to their place. Make them have an open mind, not make them, you got to do what you can, but encourage them to have an open mind, right? We want the process works the best when students are happy about all their options. And, that's another opportunity to meet someone who might be their best friend. It might be someone they really connect with. And at the end of the day, if they're being invited back, that means the organization saw something in them that they're very excited about, and they may be able to contribute positively and have an incredible experience in that organization. So With that being said, we highly encourage you to help your student have an open mind and stay open, because there's not a single organization on this campus that your student will not be happy in. We have incredible Panhellenic community. I would say an award-winning Panhellenic community, because they are. And it's important to note that they're going to be happy in any of our organizations on campus. The other piece is maximizing and optimizing those options. So again, really thinking about maximizing. If they're invited back to somewhere, that means they've seen something. So really take advantage of that piece and optimize that, because when P&Ms maximize their options, they're going to be more successful in the sorority recruitment process, and that's an important piece. The next piece is learning their login information. Many of your students all of your students, for the most part, are brand new Georgia Southern students and have just received your Georgia Southern emails and passwords. Make sure they learn it, because they'll need it to log into the P&M Companion app at the end of every day to put in those selections. They'll need it to log in to all these other pieces. If we need to troubleshoot something technology-wise on the back end, we need to be able to know that information to go in and help your student do that. So having that login information memorized is super helpful to make the process move smoothly. Next is checking the recruitment folio. So if you're not familiar, Folio is Georgia Southern's online learning platform. So if your students have any online classes or any hybrid classes that are partly in person and partly online, this is the online classroom. And as part of Panhellenic Sorority Recruitment, all of our students are put into a Panhellenic Sorority Recruitment class in Folio, where they can learn more about the Panhellenic Sorority Recruitment process. The presentation that Harriet just did is in there. So if you need to redo it and rewatch it, it is in there and readily available. But that is where they learn a ton of information about that. So make sure they're going into that folio. Also, it's very important, and part of the reason we put it in folio is the fact that every student at Georgia Southern has to use folio for their online classes. So as part of being a part of sorority recruitment, you're acclimated to the online classes early, and you're not going to have any problems turning in your assignments and making awesome grades and doing all the great things that you're supposed to do as a Eagle here at Georgia Southern. Next up, and if I could star this piece and highlight it, I definitely will: eat meals and stay hydrated. Sometimes we have students who, through the excitement of it all, don't bring their water bottle, or maybe skip breakfast on the way to their parties or anything like that. Y'all, it's South Georgia, and it's very hot, and it's a very energy draining, full-on day, and your students need that energy to be able to be their best selves in the sorority recruitment process. So please, 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 we'll have snacks in all of our break houses on row that students can have. Make sure they're eating, taking care of themselves, staying hydrated, doing all those pieces. It will be hot, it will be exhausting, so having that energy is important. Next up, asking questions. Your student needs to know just as what the chapter has to offer them and what experience that they're going to get in that organization. And they can only learn that by asking good questions. So having conversations with your students about what they want in a sorority experience and coaching them and asking those questions is really key, because the chapters want them to ask questions. They want to have good conversations. They want to understand what's important to the P&M so that there's that connection, and they're going to be much more successful if they're asking good questions and engaging in strong conversation. And it's really important if you could help them coach them in what that looks like, and specifically around what they're wanting in a sorority experience. They'll be very successful in the recruitment process. Next up is being yourself, being authentic, being the person who she is, because they want to give a bid to a person, not a personality, right? So we want to make sure that your student is their authentic self, because again, that's where you're going to find the most authentic and real connections and the ability to connect. And then lastly, relax and have fun. We know it's stressful. We know there's a lot of pressure. We know there's all these pieces, but it should be a fun process. You're meeting 16, not at all at the same time, but you're meeting our community of 1,600 women who are doing incredible things at Georgia Southern University. And that's, yes, stressful, but it's also really fun. There's a lot of incredible people here that you're going to just love getting involved with and making relationships with. And it's important to relax and enjoy the process as much as you can, because that's going to be much more helpful. And if you're relaxed and having fun and enjoying it, you're oftentimes putting your best self forward in those parties, which again is only going to help you be more successful. Things to keep in mind, again, I will always reiterate, it is South Georgia. Many of y'all are from around the area, but if y'all aren't, it is really, really hot. So again, make sure you're staying hydrated, drinking water, eating, all those pieces. Also, make sure your students a little bit prepared for the rain, because like all South Georgia weather goes, we just get random showers every once in a while. It likely will happen during the recruitment period. So make sure that they're prepared with either a small umbrella or a little raincoat, anything like that, just so they're prepared for the weather and, all those different pieces. Bringing a bag where they could keep snacks or anything they'll need throughout the week, particularly, and I want to add any medicine or medical pieces or anything like that. Your students can bring those bags. We want to make sure that they have everything that they need to be happy, healthy, and successful during the recruitment process. So make sure that they have some sort of bag to carry all those things, because they will be walking around a lot, and it's important they have all that for them. And then lastly, dress comfortably. I know Panhellenic and many of the chapters have posted style guides and different things like that, but the most important piece is being comfortable in what you're wearing, because you're going to be walking a lot. It's going to be hot. There's some other, all those different pieces. So definitely make sure that whatever you're wearing is comfortable, particularly if you're walking. And like what I mentioned with the bags, if you're wearing a pair of shoes that maybe you don't want to walk a long distance in, keeping a pair of flats or sandals or something in the bag, probably a good option too. So that's something to think about to keep in mind. And lastly, we're going to go over some of our frequently asked questions. And then after we get through these, then we'll open up the Q&A chat and start answering questions through the Q&A. But these are some of the most frequent ones that we get. So hopefully we can knock out a ton of yours. And then we can ask anything we missed from there. So, and Harriet, if you want to tag team some of these, because kind of goes to her presentation too. But one of the most frequently asked questions we get is, how many spots are in each sorority? And the question is, it depends. So Harriet, if you want to take it away and talk through the specifics of that, I'll let you explain it.
Yeah, so I'm going to pair this with a question that we've already gotten in the Q&A. So how many spots are in each sorority? It's determined by the retention of the pool, right? So our ultimate, I think it's important for you to know, our ultimate goal is to get anybody who's interested in being in a sorority into an experience with a chapter. And so again, there's room for everybody to progress through the recruitment process, just like what it said with what we presented about mutual selection. So how many bids is determined on how many potential new members are still enrolled or registered and participating at the point in which we are distributing bids. And so it is our attempt always to get anybody that's progressed fully through the week with us and attended every round by round, and been invited back to events round by round, that if you are in the position that you have a chapter that you attended preference with, that you have a spot in the community in the next round in bid day. However, the question that was asked in the Q&A was, how many women do not get a bid? To point out, or to give you an idea, there are two ways to exit the process. You exit the process by just determining that maybe the groups that you met or progressed with you in your schedule into the later rounds are not something you want to pursue any longer, and you self-withdraw. So it's important to know the difference between, again, we don't use the word dropping or cutting. No, P&Ms are not dropped or cut in the same way. There are potentially opportunities that you not get invited back to an event or to any events within a round. It's very rare, less than, a dozen every year, far fewer, less than a dozen every year. The majority of people who do not end up receiving a bid on bid day are people that self-withdraw, meaning they are not comfortable progressing any further with the options they still have available, and then they initiate their own withdrawal from the system. So to say my student didn't get anybody back, yes, they did. They received X number of invitations back into the next round. If those are not viable options to your student at that point, and they initiate their self-withdrawal, that is their own decision to make at that point. So I would say, I think we're at like 12 to 15% of our total pool of new members ultimately end up deciding to self-withdraw. And that's either a lack of interest in where they're invited back, or they just, sorority isn't for them, or this process, this particular pathway to join is not for them. We do have other ways that you can join a sorority throughout the year that don't look like this very formalized and fast-paced process. And some women experience a day or two of this procedure and this process, and they decide to join some other way. And so that is kind of the hybrid answer to the two. It depends. But I will say the majority of people who end up without a bid, that start the process and are without a bid on bid day, it's through their own choice to self-withdraw.
So the next FAQ is, can I come to recruitment bid day? Recruitment, not particularly. So that's not necessarily a process you need to be at, because your student will be busy all day and you're not going to be inside the rounds or anything like that. So don't come to the actual recruitment. But for bid day, yes, parents are definitely invited to bid day. We just ask that you're not at the Performing Arts Center where the students are receiving their the card and envelope and opening it. You're not there, but you arrive to Olympic Boulevard, to the chapter facility that your student is joining. So that's where that will be. And again, that'll be earlier in the morning, so you can enjoy the festivities and celebrations with them. Will the dining halls be open since my student is moving in early? Yes, absolutely. So the dining halls open and meal plans are activated on that first day of move-in. So your student will have access to the dining hall all week. We have scheduled break times for them to go to the dining hall for lunch during each of the rounds. So we need them to go and eat and stay hydrated and full of energy, so they could come back and be their best selves. So yes, all the dining halls will be open and their meal plans active. How will my student get to recruitment each day? And questions about parking. We get this every year. We do expect P&Ms, outstanding any particular medical accommodations or anything like that. We do expect P&Ms to walk to Olympic Boulevard for their browns and parties for each of the days. You will receive, the students will receive in their student emails more specific parking information about some lots that might be open, particularly for residence halls that might be much further from campus, but those are still require walking from the lot to Olympic Boulevard. So again, your student should be prepared to do a decent bit of walking to make sure that they could get to Olympic Boulevard on time and make their parties on time. My student has a schedule conflict. Can they go through recruitment? Yes. So it's dependent on the schedule conflict. We will do the best that we can, and Harriet can speak a little more to that. But we ask that all students with a schedule conflict come talk to Harriet and I after their P&M orientation. Harriet and I set up a table. We have a nice little neat system we have going on where we collect all the conflicts for any of the days that students have and make sure that those are inputted. And we do our best, depending on the conflict, to accommodate as much as possible. So Harriet, is there anything you want to add to that piece?
Yeah, this is very common. Daniel and I get very close to the handful of women that have schedule conflicts. We want to make this a really positive experience for them, and they should not stress. We understand that the transition to college is a lot to take on within the week. Things come up, people feel sick or under the weather or have some type of crisis they need to attend to. So whether you have a known schedule conflict or something comes up during the week, please encourage your student to be in touch with Daniel and I to coordinate any accommodation that they need. That truly is what we're there for, and this is about, you know, premier customer service for them, regardless of what they're navigating.
Absolutely. The next frequently asked question we always get, what if my student is having issues with the educational modules? So as many of you may know, prior to participating in sorority recruitment, we require all students to complete 5 educational modules. There's a hazing prevention 101. There is a fraternity and sorority specific hazing prevention module. There's decision, alcohol, and drug misuse prevention. There's a brave and bold dialogues module. And then there's the vector sexual assault prevention module. The first 4 that I mentioned are on Prevent Zone, and the students received instructions for accessing and creating their account in Prevent Zone in their eligibility email. They've also got a couple reminders from our Office of Fraternity and Sorority Life email account, and all of that went to their student account. What they do for those is they go on the Georgia Southern Prevent Zone site, create their account, complete the modules. When they complete the module, they'll receive a certificate of completion. They can download the certificate, take a picture, whatever the case may be, and then they go on to the Panhellenic Recruitment Folio and upload it into the specific assignment portal for that module. So that's how they do the first 4. They automatically have access to that as a Georgia Southern student. The one we see the most questions about is the vector sexual assault prevention model. Just so all of you know, that is required for all first-year Georgia Southern students. We just add it to the modules that we have because we want our students to knock it out and get it done sooner rather than later. So with that being said, they receive access after SOAR, typically within a couple weeks after SOAR. I will say, it is kind of a slow upload process. So I know some students may have attended SOAR and might not have access yet, but they will receive an email directly from Vector Solutions, which is the company that provides that module, when they've been uploaded into it. Any student who attended SOAR, I believe before July 10th, should be uploaded in there. If your student is attending a later SOAR and maybe a SOAR where they might not have access to the module prior to recruitment, we have all of their names. We know who they are. So we'll keep an eye on those specific ones. It's not too terribly many students, so we'll keep an eye on those and make sure that when it is available, that they complete it. So just make sure you're supporting your student in doing that. We also made the modules due this year on Friday, August 8th, which is the Friday of recruitment. We did that very intentionally so that if your student is having any issues with any of the modules, they could come to talk directly to me. Bring your laptop to the break house. I'm happy to help you troubleshoot any issues so we could get you settled and good to go. So that's what we have for the educational modules. If my student withdraws from recruitment, can they still join a sorority? Yes. So if they withdraw from recruitment, that means their options are open. And so like Harriet mentioned, fall primary recruitment week is not the only time they can join a sorority. That's just the biggest time where all of their options may be available. So after primary recruitment, if organizations need to, there could be opportunities to join some of the organizations after the fall primary recruitment period throughout the fall semester. And similarly, there are opportunities to potentially join in the spring as well. Again, not all organizations will be bringing in members later into the fall or the spring, but those are opportunities if they withdraw before signing the MRABA. If they sign that contract and submit it at the end of recruitment, that means that they've pre-accepted their bid, and that means they cannot join until the next fall primary recruitment period, which is fall 2026. So that is kind of the options if a student withdraws. If they do it before signing that contract at the end, options are wide open. How much are dues? At the end of this presentation, I'll be providing y'all a link in the chat that'll take you to a Google Drive folder. As part of the sorority recruitment process, all sororities on campus who participate in Panhellenic recruitment are required to fill out a financial transparency sheet. That gives you a breakdown of all the dues, both for their first new member semester, as well as following semesters, of what they can expect to pay per semester, both in-house and out of house if they choose to live in or out of the chapter facility. And it also breaks down those so you know exactly where the dollars are going, right? So each of the organizations are required to create those, and we make those public both to our parents and supporters and the students. These will also be uploaded into that recruitment folio. So if for some reason you lose the link, it's in the folio account. So you'll have access to that. But that is the breakdown that has the breakdown of all the dues, and I will drop that link in the chat as soon as I stop sharing and I could get the link. Next up, how does my
to give you a break?
Oh, go ahead.
I can take the next one to give you a break. I answered this in the chat as well. Students will know their group number as we progress. So we will be, as Daniel mentioned, we will be sending emails to PNMs in the next couple of days and days to come. So I would expect by August 1st that your student will have an email that directs them to the specific session for orientation that they are assigned to and their group number for the week. Spoiler alert, it's by alphabetical by last name. So if you're early in the alphabet, you're probably in session 1. If you're later in the alphabet, you're probably in session 2. And then after, group 8. So just know that that's how group numbers are done. We've had interesting conspiracy theories in the past, like I'm in group 8 because I'm blah, blah, blah. No, it's alphabetical. So know that that's coming if you need to make plans or accommodations as far as that goes.
Thank you. And then This is not particularly a recruitment related question, but we do get it almost every year. So when are the parents' weekends for each sorority? So all of our organizations typically host a parents' weekend either annually or semesterly, kind of depending on the organization. So those are independent to each organization. So I think if that's something you're super interested in, it's worth having a conversation with your student, because when they join whatever organization that they join, they'll know exactly what all the dates are for all the events that they'll be having throughout the semester are. They'll learn some of those things in their new member meetings and some of those pieces. So if you're wanting to know when parents' weekends are so that you can take time off and plan and different things like that, make sure you're asking that question early, so that you should be good to go. In the fall, it's definitely during a home football game. So keep an eye on the home football game schedule, because it will likely be on one of those dates. And then it also gives us a chance to plug. Dr. Dowell, do you know the date for the Georgia Southern Parents Weekend?
Absolutely. It is September 12th through 13th, 2025.
Perfect. So that is Parents Weekend for all of Georgia Southern. Not all the sororities do it on that weekend, so just be mindful of that. It might be a separate one, but we also invite you to the Georgia Southern one as well, because we have a lot of fun things going on during that time frame, and hope you join us. And then last frequently asked question is about early move-in. So as of today, all students should have gotten their email either earlier in July or throughout the month of July. They should have gotten their email from their student email to register for early move-in. And all of them have access to that August 5th date for all the time slots that are available. So if for some reason you think your student is registered, make sure to double check that they've received the eligibility email in their student email. If they haven't received that, then that means housing I don't know that they're eligible, and housing hasn't gotten their information. So that piece. So first step is in troubleshooting that is double checking the email for any emails from pha@georgiasouthern.edu that gives them a status update on their registration. If they've received that eligibility email, they should already have access to be able to select their early move-in spot. But if for some absolute reason that they do not, email housing@georgiasouthern.edu. That will be the best place to go, only if they have that eligibility email. So it's the subject line is notice of eligibility, Panhellenic Sorority Recruitment 2025, if that makes it easier to search. So it's very straightforward. If they have that, then they should 100% have access. And if not, then email housing@georgiasouthern.edu. So now we're going to move into the question answer portion. So you should see the Q&A on the screen. So with that being said, I'm going to scroll back and
Yeah, Daniel, you check them out. I've been answering a handful in
yes,
the chat, but anything that I'm leaving for you, you can jump in
yes.
on. A couple that I want to highlight that I think that the group would be most interested in is that question about the number. So I guess nobody said it in this presentation. We're at record numbers for recruitment, and to the point that Daniel and I have been meeting throughout the summer to make sure that our schedule is sustainable at this number of participants. That being said, I think there were some questions about, well, will that increase the number of total bids that are given out? And as I explained earlier, yes. So the number of bids each chapter gives out is dependent on how many people registered. So the number of people registered set that, and then how many are retained throughout the week. So as people progress, we don't know exactly how many bids per chapter will be given out. It isn't really that variable. So if I'm going to really simplify it, it's the number of women that are still participating at preference divided by the number of sororities. So I want you to see it not as a functionality. There's no scarcity, I guess, is what I want you to take away as a parent or supporter. There's no scarcity. So there's nothing to be scared about that this is a very large and growing recruitment. It's very exciting to everybody. The community wants to be larger and larger. We want for more women to have this opportunity to be in a sorority. So don't let's set the record straight that number of people registered is awesome. It's great. Growth is growth, and we are set and prepped to accommodate and encourage as many people through this process as possible. And we've built a system, I think, that will do that and do that in a healthy way throughout the week. We don't need rumors swirling around that like because there's more people, there's less bids or it's harder to get a bid. That is not how the system works, and that is not how we progress through the week. So just for clarification, I don't think that we're ready to share the number of people registered because we have 3 more days left. So get the word out to go ahead and register. Jaylee, the 26th, is that correct? Registration closed, Megan, Jaylee?
The 28th.
28.
28. Oh, even more days, more opportunities.
5 days.
So get excited and again, encourage anybody that's waiting for some reason to register to go ahead and do that so that we can keep up with our planning.
Perfect. So I did answer a question in there and I typed it, but I'll say it out loud about the orientation schedule. So groups 1 through 8. And again, like Harriet said, if your student's last name is towards the front of the alphabet, it's probably that time frame. Groups 1 through 8 will be at 2 o'clock, and then groups 9 through 16 will be at 3:30, and those will be at the Performing Arts Center. Where do students pick up their keys and check in at their move-in time? Great question. That is Watson Hall. So your student should be receiving directions directly to their Georgia Southern email once they've registered for early move-in and that time frame gets closer with directions. But the residence hall or the University Housing's office is in Watson Hall. So if you want to go ahead and check that out, they've moved it in the check-in process inside Watson Hall because it's hot out and sometimes it rains. So be thankful for the cool air conditioning and all those different pieces. But yes, Watson Hall is where students will go for early move-in. That's where that takes place.
Again, there were 2 questions, one about groups and one about a PNM number. If your student can see a group number on their registration, it will be reset. So do not go off of that group number if they can see it. I could have sworn we had those visibly turned off. They will be reassigned. So do not go off of that. Go off of the email. And then another question about PNM number. PNM number isn't relevant at this time. It may be relevant, as they progress throughout the week. They'll see it on their name tag probably for the first time. It'll be in the app once we tell them to download the app. Another question we received is, should my student go ahead and download the PNM Companion app? No, not necessarily. There's nothing to do. And in fact, we turn off access levels after registration closes. So there won't be an opportunity to log in. So if they're ever having a challenging time jumping in to the PNM Companion app, it's likely because we've turned off logins so that information cannot be adjusted after registration has closed. So again, take your next cues about group number, PNM number, and which session you're in, especially if you're in that middle alphabet. Hold on those until after registration is closed and we've emailed you out about that. So if you're saying group 10, you are not in a group yet. So no groups exist. So disregard groups. Again, we can't do the alpha split and we can't do the group split till we know how many total PNMs are registered. So we can distribute them correctly. So that's why groups are irrelevant until registration closes.
Yes. I'm going to answer 2 questions in one because they're both about orientation and move-in-ish. So the orientation sessions, just so y'all know, will typically take about 1 hour 15, 1 hour 30 minutes. So that's how long you can expect your student to be at that orientation session. excuse me, about 2 hours, because we have them show up a little bit early. So they have about 30 minutes to check in. And then after that, it's about an hour and 15. So expect around two-ish hours for them to be at orientation, because we ask them to arrive early and then go through the orientation pieces from there. So about 2 hours. There was a question about later check-in times if they're in the early group but have a later check-in time. Unfortunately not. So my suggestion would be to get checked in, get the keys, do what you need to do, and kind of get prepped so that your student can go. We do have a limited capacity, which is why we had to split the P&Ms in half, because we only have so much physical space. So we do need folks to attend the session that they're assigned based on their group number, so that we can make sure that we can accommodate all the P&Ms and get everything going from there. So that would be in regards to orientation and move-in. So 2 hours, and you must go to the one that you're assigned to.
Daniel, a quick question. For upperclassmen, will summer classes be applied to GPA?
Great question. If we have the GPAs before July 28th, then yes, we can count it. If you have a specific question and want me to look at your GPA right now and kind of see, you can send me an email directly at dmcburney@georgiasouthern.edu, because I could look at those grades directly. If you are an upperclassman and have 12 or more credit hours, the eligibility requirement is a 2.5 GPA. So keep that in mind. For those first semester students, it's a 2.75. But if you have 12 or more credits, we're looking at a college GPA of a 2.5. So we do need that information before July 28th. Dr. Dowell, I'm not entirely sure when grades will be posted from the registrar's office. Perfect. Dr. Dowell,
Let me check.
Into that. But if anything, email me directly, because I'm happy to look deeper into your transcripts and grades and give you more personalized support directly. How long does it take for the eligibility email to be sent from their application? I'm checking registrations and eligibility daily at this point, since we're in the last week of recruitment, our recruitment registration. I'm checking them daily, so they should have it within 24 hours, because I need to get that information to University Housing, and they need to get you your move-in time slot. So you should expect, if you haven't registered yet, highly recommend you do it as soon as possible. But you should expect that turnaround time to be within 24 hours, because I am doing it daily.
I'll go ahead and take this question about ISP. So as a reminder, the term ISP stands for intentional single preference. And again, this is one of those, if we get to that bridge, we will address it when we come to it. So if you progress to preference round and you have 2 houses that you're invited back to, 2 chapters you're attending, you attend those events, and upon leaving those events, you decide that there is one of the 2 chapters that you are unwilling to sign that contract. Because remember, it is a contract, it is an agreement, it is a pre-acceptance. If there is something that would deter you from your student from wanting to list both, and you want to exclude one of the sorority chapters from the agreement, you have the right to do that. And that is what intentional single preference is. And at that point, you have a personal one-on-one conversation with Daniel, Francisco, or myself, where we talk about your options and what that does and how that impacts, what bid day would look like for you the next day. Essentially, what we explain in that conversation is, if you'll remember the presentation, so the bracket where we have, option number 1 and option number 2. The process is essentially the same. The chapter will give us the list of people they would like to give bids to, and if it is not mutual with the number one the one group that you list, ISPing eliminates that second choice. So you are saying that you would rather not get a bid tomorrow because, again, we can't move the bracket if you don't list the second choice. You would rather not get a bid the next day as a part of formal recruitment than to be in the second choice sorority and not list that group, right? And so that is essentially what that document and decision would mean. And so you have a likelihood to receive a phone call that says you did not get a bid. But if you would prefer a call that says you did not get a bid, then opening a bid to the second choice group, then that may be the right decision for you at that time. And that would be perfectly fine. If someone does that and does not receive a bid, so they only list one on their MRABA to ISP, so they ISP and then they do not get a bid, they are still eligible for other forms of recruitment for the rest of the year, which is totally fine and encouraged, and they could join in some other way. They are still eligible. I always slow that down. If they list both chapters, pre-accept the bid to either chapter, then they open the bid the next day and they decide and they get their second choice and they decide they do not want to be in that chapter. And this would actually apply to anybody that receives a bid and then later determines they are not going to join that chapter. By signing the MRABA, you cannot join any other chapter for a year through any format of recruitment on this campus particularly. So you would have to wait until the next primary recruitment in order to join a sorority again. So again, it's a very nuanced decision to make. And Daniel and myself and the rest of the staff would be available to answer those questions. Again, much better left addressed when we're talking in a real scenario versus hypothetical.
Yes.
And thank you so much for that, Harriet. I'm going to answer some questions about what to wear whenever it pertains to the week. I see several of them talking about it, but whenever it pertains to icebreakers and philanthropy, you're actually going to be provided 2 shirts from Panhellenic, and those are posted on our Instagram page, which is GSU_PHA. And you can wear, they're white based with some basic colorful designs. You can wear any sort of bottom and accessories and shoes that you may desire. And then whenever it pertains to, and that again, that's going to be both for icebreakers as well as philanthropy. And then for Sisterhood Day, which would be the 3rd day of recruitment, we are going to have GSU Day. So you can wear a Georgia Southern t-shirt, jersey, or game day attire, whatever it may be. And then preference round is going to be our most formal round. And that is going to be more of what we would consider your Sunday's best, which you might wear to Easter, church, whatever it may be. Not necessarily cocktail attire, full on with that, but kind of a nice sundress and something that just you feel comfortable in, or even a set. It doesn't even have to be necessarily a dress. But the most important thing whenever it pertains to what your student is going to wear is to make sure that they are comfortable and then that they truly feel like themselves whenever it pertains to what they're wearing and what they're putting out to the chapters. For programming day and for bid day, because this is always a question, programming day, you're going to wear an athletic set, whatever it may be. You don't have to come dressed up to programming day. You will have time in between to kind of change, either if you're starting programming day and then going to the houses afterwards to change into your outfit, or vice versa to change out of your outfit, whatever it may be. Just something that you'll be comfortable in, because you'll be going browsing through some things that Statesboro has to offer. And then we will also be doing kind of some more presentation from Harriet as well as some other people. And then for bid day, again, kind of just like an athletic set, whatever it may be, I highly encourage wearing a tank top, because whatever house they wind up running to, they're going to be most likely slipping a t-shirt of some kind over their head. So something that won't kind of give you a heat stroke whenever it is prime time, again with Daniel, that South Georgia heat. So those are some of the things that I get. Oh, please repeat what day GSU attire. That's going to be Sisterhood Day. And there's also been a lot of questions about, can parents attend bid day? Yes, parents can attend bid day. Matter of fact, I think my parents are attending bid day this year. A lot of parents do. and you will most likely have to park at the Georgia Southern Performing Arts Center, so the Neesmith Lane Performing Arts Center.
Jaylee, I also added that folks can park because the PAC or Performance Arts Center in Neesmith Lane, that we can also use lot 29, which is directly across the street, is also additional parking if in case the Neesmith Lane gets full.
And that's adjacent to each other. You will clearly be able to see it once you pull up to that general area.
I want to add, because Dan asked a question about these questions being question and answers being posted later. There's really no place for us to download this the transcript for the questions and post somewhere. So I will say, if you want us to answer something out loud, so it's a part of the recording, so you could go look it up and rewatch it on YouTube, highly recommend you do that so that we can answer it out loud and be able to, so that you'll be able to re-reference it as we post it online within the coming days.
And I'm going to add one more thing with some of the verbiage that I may have used with the game day attire. That is going to, here at Georgia Southern, whenever it pertains to game day, some women wear dresses, some women will wear shorts and a t-shirt. Whatever it may be, whatever you feel like is showing your most true blue spirit is what you need to wear. So if that is wearing, again, a jersey, or if it's going to the full nines of wearing a matching set that has Freedom himself flying over it, you can do that. Whatever makes you feel the most confident is what you need to wear.
I'm going to take this question about legacies. So every national organization, and there were a handful of other questions tonight that I think would probably benefit from some generalized research on each of the national organizations and or local chapters, and what their policies are, what their founding values are, things of that nature. So as far as how do sororities handle legacies, this has changed a lot in the last 20 years that I've been involved with sororities. But majority of or every national group is going to have some policy and or no policy around legacies. I would say it's probably changed in the last 5, 6, 7 years that many women had legacy affiliations, that no additional privileges or fewer additional privileges are being offered or can be accommodated, specifically in our system at Georgia Southern. So nationally, many organizations got rid of their policies and or any additional courtesies that they were extending. Doesn't mean they don't happen, but you should be, if you have an interest in a particular group's like stance on legacies, you should research that for that national organization. And sometimes they have information available on the internet, or you can call their headquarters directly and understand what the policy is. But I've always kind of said that the true privilege of being a legacy of an organization, or having knowledge of a close relationship with somebody who was in a sorority, is that you've gotten to see somebody walk the walk of sorority values and the impact and legacy of what membership looks like 5, 10, 15, 20, 35 years out from that experience. And so that's the upper hand that you would have in the system, is that you just know and value what a positive role sorority life can have on your life and in making those decisions. So I can't speak to what each sorority does to handle legacies, but that's kind of been my general take across the board. So.
Now I'm going to hop in real quick because I saw a question about it and realized I haven't posted it yet. For everyone interested in the financial transparency sheets for all of the organizations, the link is now in the chat. And again, if for some reason maybe you're calling in or you lose the link or anything like that, this will be uploaded to the sorority recruitment folio. So it'll be available there, and your students will also be emailed this link as well. So it won't get lost. So if for some reason you can't find it or can't look at it right now, you'll have access. So definitely want to make sure y'all have that.
Lots of questions about recommendation letters, lots of questions about social resumes and additional information. So when registration is created, we ask the chapters what they want to know about these potential new members. So this is where they want the information. So please, please, please do not send additional information to the chapters. There's nothing needed in addition to our registration process. So no need for social resumes, no need for additional information. Daniel, I believe they can still log in. If there's some activity that you didn't incorporate into your registration and you would like to, P&Ms can still log in and update that registration until registration closes. Is that correct, Daniel?
No, they don't have access right now, but
Okay.
we reopen it the few days prior to recruitment so that we can update information.
Yeah, we can let you know, but there's no need to send anything separate. Through Panhellenic Registration for Recruitment is where our chapters are looking to learn about your student, and so that's super important.
Yeah.
Same with recommendation letters. It's not a process that's overseen by Panhellenic, and again, if they're existing or being sent or supplemented, that would be the national organization or anyone locally that would feel compelled to do that on your student's behalf.
Harriet, I just uploaded, we have a letters of recommendation site on our website. So I just uploaded that link as well. It has all the addresses for all the organizations that do accept recommendation letters. Not all of them do. So you have that information. It's also in the Panhellenic Sorority Recruitment Folio as well. Perfect.
So there's a question about, do the sororities look at P&M social medias? That just is going to truly depend on the organization and whether they look at the social media page to kind of get an understanding of maybe some of the involvement that the P&M may be a part of, or just kind of get an idea of who she is. With that being said, I'm just going to speak upon of someone who promotes a very clean digital footprint. If your grandmother would not appreciate seeing it, then maybe it's something that shouldn't be posted. But again, that's just going to depend on the organization and whether they decide to look at the social media or not.
Dr. Dowell, I want us to tag team a question real quick. There was a question about the our academic accommodations through the Student Accessibility Resource Center given considerations when the sororities look at GPA. So any accommodations that your student has with the Student Academic Resource Center, those are private to that student and the SARC office. So we don't see that. The sororities don't see that. Nobody sees that except for your student, the office. And if for some reason the office needs to notify any of your professors or any of those cases, obviously, and that's clearly communicated with your student. So we don't have any of that information at all. So we don't see that. All we see is the GPA. So if you have any specific questions about your GPA, that's something that you may need to email Dr. Dowell and myself directly. We're happy to look through that because we don't have access to any of that information, and we're happy to get in contact with the Student Academic Resource Center to manage things on a case-by-case basis, depending on any context given for any particular situation. So, but again, we don't have that information. It's very much private between your student and the Academic Resource Center. Anything to add, Dr. Dowell?
Absolutely. That information is ADA protected. So please reach out to us offline and we'll be happy to have look into it further.
Yes. Perfect. And then Megan, do you want to answer the question about the financial transparency form?
Yes, I was just typing it out. So if you go onto the financial transparency forms, you will be able to see like if you hit each sorority, it will say like fall and then it'll have the due amount and then spring due amount. So that's what you have to pay for the fall if you are a member of that sorority, and then that's what you'd have to pay for spring. Typically for your first semester in a sorority, which would be your new member term, the prices are a little bit higher just due to like national fees, initiation badges, but those typically do go down after the first semester. So, and then in the financial transparency sheet, there's like a breakdown of the cost. So you're seeing exactly what you're paying for.
Perfect. Thanks, Megan. Any other questions? We had 82, which is right on the mark.
With that being said, though, I know I'm the type of person, we got a few popping up, but I'm the type of person that I'm always like, oh, I don't have questions. And then I like walk away and I do. So if you are that, or maybe you just come up with more questions as the time goes on, you can email us at pha@georgiasouthern.edu, and there we will be able to answer any and all questions that you may have.
Yeah.
I do have one more thing to touch about the financial transparency sheet. Each sorority has their different like national fees, and so some things look different, as one of them has corporation operating fee. That's just kind of, they have like a cloud basically of money, and so then that's how they distribute it. So then that's why you'll see some have that and then some don't. But yeah, that's all from that.
I wanted to quickly answer the questions about live-in requirements because I didn't mention this during our frequently asked questions, but it is oftentimes a frequently asked question we get, particularly during the SOAR sessions, about live-in requirements for each of the organizations in the chapter facilities. So that being said, first year students, your students will not be required to go through recruitment and then immediately turn around and move into the chapter facility. If you're living on campus, you are required to live on campus for that full year. You're required to fill that housing contract. So there's no expectation that your PNM or that your student joins a sorority and then the next week immediately moves into the chapter facility. That won't be the case. That being said, general live-in requirements for sophomore year and beyond for any students who join an organization. It's really dependent on the organization. So I like to say this to all of our parents and supporters. The sorority and fraternity and facilities on Olympic Boulevard are private entities and private property. They aren't owned or operated through the university. The organizations and their housing corporations maintain the operations of those chapter facilities. So that being said, they're all a little bit different, similarly to how dues are a little bit different, right? But general guidelines between all the organizations, and Jaylee, Megan, y'all can feel free to hop in. For many of the organizations, in terms of beds per chapter facility, you're only looking at 20 to 40 beds per facility. So many students don't end up living in the chapter facility. So, that's just something to keep in mind, because our organization's total in the spring was 252. So with only 20 to 40 beds per facility, many students do not end up living in the chapter facility. So with that being said, folks who any sort of live-in requirements, general rule of thumb, first and foremost, you're going to have some student leaders in the organization who live in the house. So like the sorority's president, the sorority's house manager, some of those positions will be positions that if your student's interested in running for those positions, will likely have a requirement to live in the chapter facility, because you need to be there to take care of some of those pieces. So that's the first piece. And then in terms of who gets next dibs, it's really dependent on the organization. So we see some organizations do a seniority piece. We see some organizations do a lottery. Many organizations, you earn points by doing things in the chapter. And if you have the most points, then you get first dibs. It's really dependent on the organization. So that's definitely a question to ask, particularly during icebreaker round when they're talking through the financial pieces, because that is an important piece to understand. The other piece to understand, and I like to make sure we're very clear with parents and supporters about this, because our organizations are all financially liable for all the things that they need to do. They need to pay their bills, and that often means that they need to fill their beds. So many of the organizations do have some sort of process that requires folks to live in the house based on, however process, maybe it's reverse seniority or some other different pieces, right? So it's important to have that conversation within the chapter, because it may be a possibility that, your student is on that list where they would need to live in the chapter facility if some reason beds were not filled. That's not a common problem. I don't receive many calls, if not any, about that, but it is something to keep note of, because we don't want it to be a surprise. And it has happened on other campuses that I've worked at, not necessarily too much here, but I want to make sure that y'all are aware of that and understand that too, because your students are signing financial contracts and have obligations to the organization when they join. So it's important to have those conversations about what those obligations are, so that you're prepared to support them and do the things that you need to do to make sure they're successful.
I would also like to add on to the housing. I lived in my chapter sorority house at the time, and typically it's one of the cheaper rents out of Statesboro. It's financially a lot more affordable, but there's also a lot of benefits of living on row. So when it does come to that, or if it does come to that, I would highly encourage it.
Again, I also lived on in my chapter house my sophomore year, and it was cheaper as well whenever it pertained to certain things, because my rent and utilities were all combined in one. So that was really nice. Talking about dues just in general, because this isn't something I've seen pop up quite yet, but just kind of having an idea, is that each organization does offer different payment plans. So you can pay fully upfront for the semester, or I personally pay monthly. I know that there's some sisters in my organization that they pay every 2 weeks. So it's just going to depend on your organization and the payment plans that they have to offer. And then, are there any scholarship or payment? Oh, we kind of mentioned that a little bit. Whenever it pertains to scholarships, that is going to pertain to your organization, whether they offer scholarships pertaining to either your academic or your dues. I know, for example, for my organization, they only allow us to, we have separate scholarships. We have academic scholarships, and then we have scholarships that are willing to help with your dues. So it just depends on the organization.
Any other questions?
I would also like to put out there, we'll be posting this on our Instagram soon, but we are also going to do a P&M info session again, like how we did on Instagram Live, but it's going to be a Zoom just like this, and that's going to be next Tuesday. But we'll make a graphic and post that, but just kind of want to give you guys a heads up if they have any last minute questions.
Best place to buy bid day gifts that deliver. I will leave that to Megan and Jaylee.
I would highly recommend Dish and Lily. They're actually going to be one of our sponsors this year for recruitment. So they have like all sorts of different packages that you can buy. And I want to say that they do deliver. Don't quote me on that. But I do believe they deliver to the chapter houses. But definitely check them out. If you just look up Dish and Lily Statesboro, they'll be more than happy to probably answer any of the questions that you may have.
Also, like Amazon, I know my mom did that for me. Amazon has 2-day shipping, and it's a lot more affordable. And then like Etsy has really good things. One thing I would say about big day gifts is they will also go through a big little process. So they'll be getting lots of merch, lots of t-shirts, stickers, all that things. So I would try to just maybe get them like 1 or 2 things, and then let their future big kind of push on. And then if they still want more, then I would recommend getting more. You can never have too much.
It's a solid holiday gift when winter comes around as well. So you can acknowledge them at multiple points, not just bid day.
Yes. Perfect. Anyone else? All righty. Well, with that being said, something pop up? Are bid day gifts expected by the girls, Jaylee, Megan?
No,
Not at all.
you are
No.
actually, when you run home, most organizations do this where they have a little bag, and that bag will have assortment of different things. The letters to go on the back of your car will be on there. There'll be t-shirts. There may even be like the things that go on the back of your phones to put cards in, all sorts of different things. And honestly, they're just so hyped up that they are not thinking about a gift. And they're probably not thinking about you in that instance. They're just thinking about the exciting things that they have coming up. So they're definitely not expected.
They're getting a ton of goodies on bid day. That is absolutely for sure. Awesome. All righty. Well, if you have any additional questions that you think of after we log off or anything like that, I wanted to bring this page back up so that you're able to access it. So that is our Office of Fraternity and Sorority Life information. You can find our phone number, our email, as well as our social media handles. And then we also have the Panhellenic Association's email and social media handles there as well. But with all that being said, I want to thank y'all so much for being here again. If you had to dip out or miss something or want to reference this again or have a friend that missed this, again, this will be recorded and uploaded to our YouTube page within the coming days. So definitely want to make sure that y'all do that. But yeah, again, thank y'all so much. And we hope y'all have a wonderful night. And we're excited to see you in August.